This is Radio Takeover, Brevard's hit talk radio program with Karen Wooden and Chuck Fresh. Wednesdays at 1, live on 1510 WMEL, 94.7 FM Cocoa, 99.9 FM Cocoa, 100.7 in Melbourne. Streaming online on SoundCloud, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and iTunes. Now, hold on to your seats. It's time for this week's edition of Radio Takeover.
Welcome to Radio Takeover. My name is Chuck Fresh, along with Karen Wood, and a lot of stuff coming up this weekend. Hey, Bob and Jessica's birthday walk going on to benefit Ascension Catholic Church's food pantry this Saturday at 7 a.m. We'll see you all on the beach. Also join Karen, myself, and Joanna, and a bunch of other fun people at Puddle's Pity Party. I can't even say that. Going on in Orlando this weekend. We'll all be there. Who we got today?
Today's guest is one of those powerful guys in the entertainment business who prefers not to be in the spotlight. Yeah, that's a pretty rare thing. Mm-hmm. Robert Maffia is the young man who introduced Radio Takeover to Sal Valentinetti. Robert's history in the music business is long and storied. We're talking connections with music legends including Rod Stewart, Ozzy Osbourne, Motley Crue, Bruce Springsteen, and Jon Bonjovi. The stories this gentleman has are surely worth millions to the tabloids.
Millions, Karen.
Millions.
You have to put your little finger up in the thing, like
millions.
Millions. Robert Maffia has agreed to chat with Chuck Fresh and I, basically off the record. So for this show only,
Just this show,
we are suspending our typical hard-hitting reporting and tossing some softballs at the background king of the entertainment industry.
the background king of the entertainment industry, ladies and gentlemen.
Sir Robert Maffia.
Woo! Welcome to Radio Takeover.
Hey.
You've
Hey,
been-
how you doing?
What dirt do you want today? Say anything you want to know.
Well, first of all, you've been promoted to sir. You've been knighted officially by Radio Takeover. So congratulations on that. Yes.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Rod Stewart would be jealous. It took him 47 years to get knighted by the Queen of England.
So welcome to the show, and thanks for being with us. And we owe you a special thanks for hooking us up with Sal Valentinetti.
Yeah.
That was very, very cool. And his only real radio interview in Brevard County. So Tina's ears just peaked up when you said Rod Stewart. So tell us what your connection is with Rod Stewart. We saw him in Orlando not too long ago, and he nearly decapitated Tina with a soccer ball. He kicks soccer balls at...
He's been sued a few times. He's broken some hands.
I believe it.
Wow.
He's a good soccer player.
He is. He's got a heck of a kick for a 70-something-year-old.
Orlando could use some help with their
yeah,
soccer
they sure
team.
could. Sign him up.
Just saying.
Yeah, he's actually broken hands.
I believe it, yeah.
Wow.
He doesn't pull back either, man. He lets them roll. So what's your connection with Rod?
Back in the old days, he was clearing the building.
I believe it.
A little bit not as strong as he used to, but he stopped playing soccer because of his knee.
Yeah.
It was either he couldn't do it anymore. But I had a lot of friends that were all on his tours back in the 80s. My friend Jimmy Savala, who's a saxophone player, and my friend Gary Zipperman was his drum tech. I knew him through them, and I used to go there all the time. He's a great guy. He's a brilliant mind. He's very smart. He's probably got the best voice in the world because that voice can sing anything.
Yeah, amazing range.
Extremely diverse. But that's how we got to know him back in the old days, was because of that. A lot of stories that goes on with artists and stuff like that. Poor Phil, he didn't really fit in with the band because he was actually a musician.
Right.
He was a musician in demand. And, Phil got kicked out for this guy, Jimmy Zavala. And I became friends with Jimmy. Jimmy's another great saxophonist. He's played with the Eurythmics. He's played with Richard Marx.
Wow.
But that's how it was back in the day. Like, I knew a lot of the guys from the tour. So we used to go there all the time. When I was 16, I went with a friend of mine. I actually was on that stage and kicking the soccer ball around. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But great guy. Very smart, very, he's been around for 50 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a career, man.
People don't, it's funny. One of the knocks on Sal was that he needs to sit still. that he moves around too much on stage.
Nah.
They said that to Elvis Presley, too.
It works.
Well, yeah, but it's funny. And he told me, he started to laugh. And I go, what? He goes, do you know who taught Rod stage presence? And I said, no. He goes, he used to come in, when they were done rehearsing, Rod would go into a room and close the door. And he goes, this guy used to teach him how to work the microphone and how to work the stage and how to move around. He goes, you know who it was? And I said, no. And he goes, Frank Sinatra.
What?
Yep. Frank Sinatra was, his daughter Nancy was really good friends with al-stewart, Rod's wife at the time. And Frank taught him shake his ass and move around and how to hold the microphone.
What?
Just taught him. Yeah.
Has anybody else heard this story? I think
Rod took ballet too.
I think we have a world premiere here, Karen.
I think so.
No one knew that. I told Sal that. Sal was laughing. I go, no, Sal, it's true. Let me tell you.
Okay.
Sal, I'll say this 100 times. I go, Sal, you're better than Frank Sinatra. You have absolutely pitch and tone. Sal, Frank and Dean couldn't shine Sal's shoes.
Wow.
And even Nancy Sinatra said that. You got to remember, back in the day, Frank had the best of the best behind him.
Yeah.
The best microphones, the best whatever, right? Studios, movies, everybody. Sal doesn't have any of that, and he's all self-taught.
Right.
Sal's voice is 10 times better than Frank.
Right.
The only difference between Frank and Sal is that Frank was given those songs to sing. The only difference. Frank wasn't a great singer. He really wasn't. He was a good singer.
Right.
But Frank's art was the microphone. He knew how to work the microphone. He knew how to pitch the microphone back, how to belt in, come close, move away. He was really good at that. But Sal is way better. But yeah, that's what he's laughing. He goes, yeah. And he goes, Frank taught Rod all that.
Wow.
And he went for ballet lessons too.
Sal or Rod?
Rod.
I think Sal needs some ballet lessons.
I could see that now.
Sal and Tommy in a tutu.
Definitely. Big Tommy.
And that's the reality show right there, man.
Big Tommy with the cigar.
Oh, did you see you could try the friend. I'll actually send it to you.
Okay.
Tommy's been getting on his kick lately of taking showers singing.
Yeah, I caught some of that, yes.
Did you see the one with the cigar?
Yes. And then he hollers out to get a light or something, yes.
Oh, Lord.
His poor mother.
I know, right? God love him.
God.
Hey,
Tell us how you hooked up with Sal.
I saw Sal on Facebook. I was like, wow, this kid's really good. My cousin, who's an industry guy, he so dislikes those reality TV shows. So I was like, Mickey, I'm sending you this. You got to check this guy out. Yeah, I'll check it out. Mickey has a ritual. He gets up every morning and he sits on his toilet.
This is a story I was telling you.
Every morning he says, guess what I'm doing? I'm like, you're taking a dump. He's like, guess what else I'm doing? I said, what? And he goes, I just watched the kid. You're right. And I reached out to little Tommy, and I said, listen, I can get you into the Paramount. That's how it kind of started. And I was friends with people in the New York radio. Scott Shannon, I don't know if you ever heard of him. He's a radio icon.
Oh, yeah, sure.
He loved Sal, and I got him on there. And, Sal had no venue history, industry, no data, no numbers, nothing. So about 3 weeks later, they gave me a date, and about 3.5 weeks later, we closed the deal. They actually pushed the date to a Thursday instead of a Friday because, I don't know if you ever heard of him, Calvin DeGraw, pretty big artist, and he owned that Friday date that I was trying to get Sal in, and he wouldn't give it up. So we got Sal in on a Thursday, and I said, he'll sell that place out, don't worry about it. And Sal sold out so quick that Thursday before the show, they gave me Calvin DeGraw's date and kicked Calvin DeGraw back for next week to the following Tuesday.
Holy smokes!
After that, it was open. Sal's a great guy. I'm glad I'm involved with him.
You did well. You did well. Have you ever been to any one of Sal's shows?
I went to the first two. I was sick as a dog, but it was the first time I actually was bedridden for about a month. And that week, I was sending him to do radio stuff, and I don't even remember sending him to do the stuff.
Wow.
Like, I was complete bedridden. I don't even know how I got him there.
You know, there's something that you just picked up on him, being able to relate to older crowds. I mean, considering when you met him, I guess he was still only 20, 21.
He was 21, but my father was a jazz guitarist. He played guitar. He loved Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
And I took my father to see Frank back in the 80s.
Wow.
When Frank was still singing. It was just more, it wasn't just the music. It was just his whole demeanor, his attitude, the way he was. He was cocky, but he wasn't arrogant.
Swagger. Yeah.
He has a pretty wide range of audience.
Yeah. Well, you know, my boys like him. They're 17 and 14.
Yeah.
I mean, they think the world of him.
The crowd at the King Center had everybody from 11-year-olds to 90-year-olds.
Right.
I think the average age was 110, but I mean, you discount that, he has a pretty wide appeal.
Combined ages.
Yeah, he's got the full demographic. But, you know, it's funny. The first night we were there, Sal was doing a meet and greet, and I was hanging out with Sal's mom, and security called me over, and they said, look, there was this 11-year-old girl sitting outside by Sal's car. It was so cold that night. I mean, I think it was about 5 degrees that night. It was brutal.
Wow.
And she was out there for like a half hour. And I'm like, bring her in. So they brought her in, and I said, I'll just put her online. But she followed him. She was taking pictures of him. And Sal was good. You know, he talked to her at the bar. It was cute.
Nice.
You know, I watched it from the corner.
Yeah.
Nice.
So let's go back in time a little bit. You're talking about your dad here. So if you just close your eyes for a minute, Mr. Maffia, and tell us about the early days of the legendary Robert Maffia. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in a town called Rockaway. It was a Jewish community. The cops used to follow my father around.
Wait, what?
No, Italians and Jews don't
let's
mess
talk
too
about that.
It's a,
well, you know, that way it was a very tight Jewish community. But my father's last name, I mean, literally the cops used to follow my father up the street at night and park at the top of the hill and sit there. They just follow him around. But my father was a good man. My father played jazz guitar. He sold life insurance too. Which was pretty comical with his last name.
Yeah.
It's funny because the guitarist for Frank Sinatra, Mottola, was friends with my dad. They both had the same guitar. So they used to jam out all the time. And there is a picture of me someplace when I was a baby. They were from Jersey City, the Newark area, Hoboken. That's where Frank was.
So we were talking before, Robert, about your family being in the insurance business for a while. But we're not talking about, like, Prudential. We're talking more of the family insurance business, if you dig what I'm getting at here. So what can you share about that history before your parents without violating any RICO statutes?
What they did was, Jersey City or Newark with a lot of mom-and-pop places. And what they would do is they would go around and make little collections. They'd get paid. So if place got robbed or they got held up or something happened, they would go find them, get their money back or whatever. And that's how I used to make collections. But some of my family members ran gambling operation in Newark. It was one of the biggest ones. It was. They actually did a special on it on HBO. My mother told me the story that when they used to go to that once a month, they would go to this my father's Uncle Jimmy's house, and it would take them 20 minutes to open the door because they hide all the roulette wheels and all the poker tables and everything else, and they actually got busted. But half the people that were going there were townsmen, people on the council, police people, some influential people. And he was like, well, if you're going to bust me, I'm going to bust them. And, so what wound up happening was my Uncle Jimmy's son wound up doing 6 months of time. But it was stupid because he only had to go there on the weekend, and he'd go home during the week.
Nice.
And it was like getting away from his wife.
Yeah, it's like a golf weekend. You know, it makes you wonder if things were, everybody says things were better back then. It makes you wonder if things run that way would work now. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I think
things would be safer and there was more respect. And
yes, there was more respect. Kids
back
were afraid
then?
of their elders.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah.
So let me go back to your dad. You ended up gravitating towards music. Your father played jazz guitar. Tell us about Dad. Was he a night gigger?
No, I didn't really gravitate to it until later. My father played guitar. I wish I would have learned more about it, and I didn't. I was a painter. was a house painter. And I was painting a venue, and a friend of mine who's an entertainment lawyer was booking. Mm-hmm. And I was painting the room, and they were all sitting down in the chair, and they were having a conversation. They were trying to get this one guy. And I turn around, and I go, I know him. And they looked at me, well, how do you know him? I was like, my aunt knows him. I've known the guy since I was a kid. They said, can you get him? I was like, yeah.
Whatever.
They got him in the room, and then they said, well, who else can you get? I said, I can get anybody you want. As long as you got the money. It was easy because my Aunt Eileen, who I love dearly, had such a good friendship, relationship with all these artists that it was just easy for me to do because all I would have to do was call them on the phone.
Nice.
Well, what I would do is, technically you're supposed to call the manager or the agent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I would call the artist, make the deal with the artist, and then hang up the phone and call the agent, and without telling them that I've already made a deal with your artist for this amount, and that's what I would do. Because my aunt told me that you have to get as close to the artist as you can. Mm-hmm. Like with Sal. Everything I do with Sal, I always call Sal first.
You're a genius, man. No, wait, Aunt Eileen is a genius.
Aunt Eileen
was brilliant. When I looked at this venue, I'm like, you guys are losing money. What are you doing? You're paying them too much money. You should be doing incentive deals with some of these guys. And that's how I started to figure it out. I would do door deals, percentages. There's 3 things I learned from working in that venue and from my aunt that I try to do today. And I told Sal the same thing. I said, look, the 3 things that drove me crazy when I dealt with artists was, number 1, too many people involved calling the same venue. Only got to be one person calling that particular venue. Right. 2, you have to promote. You have to work just as hard to promote that show. And you have to, and number 3 is be reasonable. Every venue is different. The size of the room, Sal doesn't get the same fee every place he plays.
Right.
You can't get $20,000 from a room that only holds 700 people.
Right.
You just can't. Like the Paramount in Huntington, the first venue, I said, Sal, I was like, listen, Sal did extremely well at the Paramount. He did about 3 times the amount he thought he was going to get because the deal was structured where if they didn't have to promote it, if it sold on its own, then there was money left over that would go back to Sal. But I said, Sal, I was like, listen, you have to understand, the Paramount has a $15,000 a day opening cost. That's $15,000 that they're in the red before they even sell a ticket. It's a 1,000-seat room. Wow. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is.
That means they're 15 in the red before, and if you don't sell tickets, they're screwed.
Let's talk more about your aunt.
Yeah, I want to know more about Aunt Eileen.
She was instrumental in bringing Southside Johnny and Bruce Springsteen.
That's insane.
Yeah, well, what happened was back in the early 70s, the legendary Stone Pony was on its last leg. They had no money, and it was a dive bar. And my aunt and her friend George, who was a musician, said, why don't we bring in the younger talent in the area, start building up that audience. So they brought in Johnny Lyons, Southside Johnny, when he was a kid, young, teenager. They brought in Bruce when he was a kid, and that's how that whole thing started. And it was instrumental in that. Stone Pony's a legendary place, but it was a dive bar. It was bad scene, and they resurrected it. I learned one thing from Bruce Springsteen, and I learned it at a eulogy he gave to my cousin's husband's father was Bruce's bodyguard, and they were he was talking in the eulogy, and he said when Bruce showed up at our Jersey, he stilled the place. And Bruce wanted to come back, and Terry wouldn't bring him back. And Bruce didn't understand it. So Terry turned around and he goes, listen, I don't care how many people you bring into this room. If I can't sell burgers and beer, I don't want you here. Because everybody was dancing. No one was drinking. No one was eating. And the bar wasn't making any money. So I learned that from him, that in order for a venue to make money, they got to have a bar by and all that other stuff. That's really key.
Right.
Yep. I used to do that too. I was a DJ back in the day in Philly and South Jersey, and we had a lot of bars. People would dance all night, but they weren't drinking. So we had to stop things. I had to do promotions. I started to bring in these contests and stuff that would get people off the dance floor and off to the bars. I went, what the hell is this guy doing? I'm getting you to the bar, you idiot. I'm just acting like an idiot trying to get you to drink more. So
one day we're going to see videos.
There are none. That was there was no videos back in that day,
Oh, I'm sure.
No, they didn't. But I remember Sal's bar buy was so bad at the first show, and I said, Sal, we got to take a break. Mm-hmm. So if you take a break,
the intermission,
45 minutes into it, people will go to the bar and get a drink, and the bar numbers went up.
Brilliant.
But that's what you got to do with these dance parties. As much as you don't want to stop the flow, you got to stop it for 10 or 15 minutes.
Oh, at least.
Because that's how they make money.
That's it. Yeah. I didn't know that at first. When you start now, you figure if my dance floor dies, I suck. But that's not how it works, man. They're like, you need to get people to the bar, man. And then they start looking at the numbers.
Get people at that bar.
I made
pay the lights.
I just my pay went up tremendously when I started showing this to bar owners, man. Wow. And I was making $100,000 a year at 20 years old, man. It was insane. Wow. I was the only kid that knew this.
Jeez.
So I completely agree with you. That's the way it's brilliant. That's the way to do it. They're putting that intermission in Sal's show was brilliant.
But you know what? I like the intermission too because, and I'll just say, I know this is
leaky bladder?
Well, you know what? If you, okay, let's just get it out there.
That's Tina's problem.
I don't have a leaky bladder, but no, you know what? When you're at a performance, a play, whether you're watching stand-up comedy, a concert, you do not want to be rude,
right?
And get up in the middle of it,
right on,
and walk away. And I'll tell you, I saw a comedian. I don't remember which one it was.
Preacher Lawson?
Yeah, not Preacher. Not yet. But somebody made the mistake of getting up in the middle of it. And so, the comedian went on and on and on. And then as soon as the person came back, they were like dead silent.
That's great. That's great.
That was it. So that's always in the back of my head, too.
You're open target when you do that because if the comedian sees you get up,
right?
This is Radio Takeover with Karen Wood, and I'm Chuck Fresh. Our guest today is Robert Maffia, the background king of the entertainment industry, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll be back right after these short words.
Whenever I am on the Space Coast, I always make time in my schedule to listen to Radio Takeover with Karen Wood and Chuck Fresh. Stand by. They'll be back for another half hour after these messages.